Disclaimer: I doesn't claim any of the arts. All the picture shown belongs to the respective artist and company. If you are original owner and want me to remove the video, I will do it immediately. Just send me an email to inform me. And if you liked my content, please subscribe to the channel. Chapter begins, and we see that Luca was standing in front of Hemilas Custoria. He was standing up straight, and his face didn't show any worry. Hemilas said with a happy smile, "You did a great job, Luca, the leader of the 21st platoon." Luca answered, "Thank you, Captain." Hemilas kept looking at the screen in front of him, his eyes moving quickly over the report. "Kodrak thought you were very good," he said thoughtfully. He said your fighting skills were the best he had ever seen in someone leading a platoon. But he also said you weren't very good at getting your soldiers to trust you. Well, you can get better at that by learning from Kinuan. Anyway, the report says you waited until Lilian Ramones led you to the deepest part of the tunnels before you killed her. Was there a reason you picked her to be your guide? Luca felt his heart beat faster. This was the moment he had been waiting for. He stayed calm and replied, "Yes, Ile and I planned to stop the rebels from escaping by taking control of the teleportation device. We thought Lilian Ramones would be the best person to hold hostage because she wasn't very strong in a fight." Hemilas nodded, as if he was thinking about whether that made sense, and then narrowed his eyes a little. "That sounds reasonable, but Luca, I have one more question." Luca let out a slow breath, already knowing what was coming. "Is it about my feelings for Lilian?" Hemilas moved his cup around in a circle, his voice calm but sharp. "It's not just about you. Ile was also very close to Lilian Ramones." Under the table, a recording device was quietly recording everything that was said. Luca put his hands behind his back, making sure they didn't shake. "We're not dumb enough to risk a mission because of something like that. You of all people would know that, Chief Centurion." His voice stayed steady, but his mind was racing. "To be honest," Luca went on, "I wanted to give Lilian some hope that she might live if she helped us. It was the least we could do for her." Hemilas stared at him closely. Luca tightened his jaw and thought desperately, "Please tell me that's enough of an explanation." After a long silence, Hemilas finally closed his eyes and smiled. "I understand. You must be tired. Let's stop talking about it." Luca turned around, relieved, ready to leave. "Oh, and one more thing, Luca," Hemilas's voice cut through the room like a knife. Luca stopped in his tracks. Hemilas casually lifted his mug, took another drink, but his eyes became sharper, and his face was impossible to read. "Considering how well the Ramones family destroyed Ice's platoon, I have to say I'm surprised they were so powerful." Luca's blood turned cold. His eyes opened wide in shock, but he quickly forced himself to stay still. "Now, there's no reason to be surprised. I already wrote everything in the report. Platoon was attacked while chasing the rebels, so what is he trying to do? Why is he testing me like this? I can feel the sweat starting to come out." Luca turned his face, keeping his expression neutral, even though his heart was pounding. In a careful voice, he answered, "If I had been in his place, I would have stopped my platoon from being wiped out. I believe I will be the one in charge of our corps." For a moment, Hemilas just looked at him, and then a knowing smile appeared on his face. "I expect great things from you." Luca sat without moving inside the transport, staring blankly out the window. His mind was wandering, and he couldn't relax. "As I traveled to the capital, I fell asleep very quickly. It was normal after spending days without any time to rest, but those awful memories kept coming back. Lilian, the arcane fortress, the relic, the teleportation device, and the border city, the place Lilian wanted to run away to. In the end, she never even left the Empire. She died before she could take a single step towards freedom, and Ile was the one who shot her. I couldn't even look at him. He only killed Lilian because I was there. Otherwise, he would have been happy to die with her." Even though Luca had achieved a lot, Ile was still alive, which was his main goal. "Yeah, this is okay." When they got back, Luca and Ile were given time to rest. Then, they were given medals of honor for their actions in battle. The famous 7th-ranked cross-sword medal. Among all the Imperial Guard cadets, only Luca and Ile had received such a high honor. Luca and Ile stood on the roof, looking out over the city. Ile spoke. "Isn't it strange that I got a Medal of Honor?" Luca, standing behind him, let out a small breath before asking, "I never thought you would kill Lilian." I thought you would try to attack the Imperial Guard, even though you knew you had no chance. Ilay stood still for a moment before answering. I definitely would have if you hadn't been there. He turned a little, looking at Luca. My family is very happy that I got a medal, even though we used to spend a lot of time with the Raminis. Luca's eyes became darker. You should quit being a soldier. It's not the right job for you, he thought to himself as he watched Ilay. He really did sacrifice his own soldiers for his personal feelings. Soldiers died because of one man's love. Ilay laughed sadly. I would quit if I could, but it won't be easy. My family wants me to be an Imperial Guard, no matter what. It would have been better if you had just killed me back there. Luca clenched his fists. Without warning, he punched Ilay in the stomach. Ilay bent over, gasping for air, his face turning pale. His Medal of Honor broke off his uniform and fell to the ground. Still frowning, Luca spat. Watch what you say, Ilay. Holding his stomach, Ilay whispered, Ugh, this hurts a lot. I think I might have damaged my organs. Luca crossed his arms. Stop complaining. Even if your organs fail, you can replace them with something mechanical. Ilay let out a weak laugh as he slowly sat down against the wall, trying to catch his breath. I've never been more angry at myself. If only I had tried harder to become stronger. Luca looked down at him, his expression unreadable. Nothing would have changed. Ilay pressed his forehead against his knee, his voice shaking as he mumbled, Luca, what have I done? Tears ran down his face, staining his uniform. Luca watched in silence. Ilay was not a heartless killer. He felt the weight of his actions, the guilt of sacrificing his own soldiers, the failure to save Lillian. It was destroying him. Luca's eyes moved down to the broken metal on the ground. Whether it's his mind or his life, Ilay doesn't belong in the Empire. Both men stepped into the elevator. Luca, I'm gonna take some time off and go home for a while, he muttered. It's been 4 years, so we should be allowed a few months. Luca folded his arms and stared ahead. Let me ask you one last thing. Why did Lillian laugh as she watched her family die? Ilay didn't turn around. She had a fiancé chosen by her family, he answered, a man 30 years older than her. When Lillian was born, he promised a lot of money in exchange for one thing. Luca narrowed his eyes. What was it? Ilay sighed. He wanted her to be raised to be exactly like his dead wife. He even sent many pictures and records to make sure of it. Lillian's face, her likes and dislikes, her habits, even her name. None of it was her own choice. It must have been terrible. That was also why she knew so much about Bellet. Luca's jaw tightened, a feeling of disgust washing over him. His fist tightened as he muttered, so this is what happens when evil desires meet power. He turned back to Ilay. So she was abused from the time she was born? Ilay nodded. Yeah, Claude was the only one who ever showed her any kindness. Luca frowned, trying to remember the name. So for Claude to have set me up with Lillian. Ilay winced and rubbed his temples. It was me and Lillian who planned that. When I told Claude that you were the chief centurion's secret illegitimate child, he believed it. Luca's face darkened instantly. You, he stopped in the middle of his sentence, realizing something. Wait, and Claude actually believed that? Ilay smirked a little, even though he was tired. Everyone knew how much the chief centurion liked you. It would explain how someone from a poor orphanage became an Imperial Guard trainee. The captain himself is from the Castoria family. Claude thought that if Lillian had your child, it would set her free. Luca ran his hand through his hair, annoyed. Man, you really don't know when to stop. Ilay looked at him with a look that said he was sorry. Luca studied him for a moment before sighing. Ilay is my friend, but he's not a good person. If he needs to, he'll lie to others. He even killed his own soldiers and then lied to me, but strangely enough, I still trust him to protect me. It's hard to believe I feel this way after everything he's done. As the elevator continued to go up, Luca let out a deep breath. Let me just hit you one more time. Ilay's head turned quickly towards him. Hey, again? Kinuan closed his book quietly. A smile appeared on his lips as he greeted him. I see our war hero has finally arrived. Luca pulled out a chair and sat down, his mind already trying to understand the situation. I visited Kinuan regularly, someone I was told to keep an eye on. He knew that I was following the chief centurion's orders. Kinuan leaned back in his chair. You got the cross-sword medal, right? Luca sat up straighter, answering without showing much interest. It's just a 7th rank medal. Everyone gets one eventually. It's nothing compared to your amazing achievements. I can't say I hated the time I spent with Kinuan. Luca changed the subject. I heard from the chief centurion that you're good at managing soldiers. Kinuan chuckled. Emila's said that, huh? He thinks too highly of me. Well, I saw your fighting records, so I can give you some advice. Were your men not listening to your orders? Luca shook his head. No, they're all great soldiers of the Empire, willing to die even if they've never met the commander giving the orders. Kinuan tapped his chin, his face becoming more serious. Then that must mean you were too nice. Instead of using your men, you decided to take the risks yourself. Luca's voice stayed strong. By doing that, we kept all of our strength. Kinuan's eyes hardened. Not at all. The more you fight at the front, the more stress your brain is under, which makes it harder to make good decisions, which is the most important skill for a commander. You wasted resources that you should have saved, all to protect your men. Luca tensed up, his voice becoming sharper. So are you saying I should have used them instead? Kinuan's voice stayed calm but firm. I'm not saying you should order them to their deaths. You need to make your men choose to die willingly. He pressed a button on his desk, and a holographic display turned on. 2 familiar people appeared, Gilda and Gabriel. Kinuan pointed at them. Do you remember Gilda and Gabriel from the lower areas? You saved one from the gangs and paid for the other's medical bills. Those 2 would be more than happy to help you. Luca let out a breath. That's obvious since I've done something for them. Kinuan smirked. But it's more than enough for them to be willing to give their lives for you. You need to spend more time making a stronger connection with them. Of course, you also have to keep your distance emotionally. If you become too attached, you'll hesitate to use them. Luca's voice became darker. I don't want to do that. Kinuan simply chuckled. That's what I like about you, good boy. The point is this: be loved but don't love them back. That's the secret to staying in control in every relationship. Luca clenched his jaw before asking, I have a question. What if I can't handle sacrificing others, things like feeling guilty or having a conscience? Kinuan leaned forward, his voice without any sympathy. Then you better get used to it. If you don't, you'll never be able to be better than others. Luca got up from his seat and turned away. As he walked towards the exit, he muttered to himself, I'll try to be more willing to sacrifice my men next time. Kinuan reopened his book with a satisfied smile. Of course, good boy. Luca stood on the roof. Below, a circular landing area was waiting for an aircraft to arrive. Luca's mind was somewhere else. He thought back to his conversation with Hemilas Castoria. Luca, go to Krathia Academy. Luca was shocked by the order. What? Hemilas chuckled. Ha, you seem surprised. It'll be 2 months at most, I promise. It'll be a good experience for you. Luca's eyebrows came together. I thought I wouldn't have to go. It's tradition to send our best first. Oh, Ile refused. He said he wanted more time off at home. Luca let out a breath. I guess he couldn't forget about it. Hemilas studied him before going on. You've never seen what the Society of Nobles is like, but you need to if you really want to be part of the Castoria family. Luca closed his eyes, breathing in deeply before answering. If that's what you say, I'm happy to go. Hemilas smirked. All right, I'll give you a guide. I have a feeling you'll like them. The memory disappeared as the sound of engines filled the roof. Luca stood up straight, raised his hand and saluted and said to himself, It's time to meet up. The aircraft landed, dust blowing around the landing area. The doors opened with a hiss, and Luca's eyes opened a little in surprise. Sitting inside the aircraft, a girl with black hair looked at him with an expression that was hard to read. She leaned forward a little, resting her chin on her hand before saying, What are you waiting for? Get in. As Luca walked onto the plane, holding his bag, My name is Luca, and I'm training to be an Imperial Guard. Giselle rolled her eyes, still looking away from him. I already know who you are. You don't need to tell me. Luca looked closely at her. Her body language, the way she avoided looking at him, the tension in her face, told him she didn't want to be there. She seemed angry and arrogant. She's not fully robotic, so she must be a noble about my age. He figured. He sat down in front of her and said in a calm but firm voice, I'm here because the chief centurion ordered me to come. How long will it take to get to Academy? He paused, watching her reaction. Are you really the guide he sent? She kept her eyes closed, still turned away, and said in an annoyed voice, Why do you care? Luca clenched his fist, trying not to get angry. Wow, she's really making me mad, he thought. With a smirk, he finally said politely, "Okay, Miss Custoria." Her eyes snapped open, surprised, before she quickly looked away again. She muttered, "How did you know?" Luca leaned back. It was easy to guess. Not many people can complain about Chief Centurion Hus Custoria's orders. Still not making eye contact, she asked, "And you didn't know who I was before?" Luca shrugged. "You can ask your father if you don't believe me." For the first time, she seemed truly upset. Luca could almost hear her grinding her teeth as she thought, "Why did my father give me this job?" Luca watched her, thinking hard. This woman is probably the Chief Centurion's daughter. Sending her as my guide must be his way of showing he really plans to let me join the Custoria family. He smiled slowly. "Luca Custoria? That sounds good." Her voice brought him back to reality. "Like you guessed, my father ordered me to be here." She looked at him, her eyes full of dislike. "I'm Giselle. My name is Giselle Custoria, but don't ever act like you know me. It annoys me." Luca sighed. Lily and Ramones were much nicer, he thought. He sat up straight and started to say, "I'm sorry if I offended you." But then he stopped himself. Why should I have to apologize? I didn't go through all that just to kiss up to some noble. I came to this academy to get away from that kind of life. I'm sure the Chief Centurion would understand. He closed his eyes for a moment and sighed. "Actually," he said, looking directly at her, "never mind. I'd rather die than suck up to someone who hates me. Let's just do what we're supposed to do. You guide me and I'll follow. Okay?" Giselle's eyes widened a little at his rudeness. Her fingers shook slightly, and she seemed very angry. Gritting her teeth, she turned away again and closed her eyes. Luca, annoyed, rubbed his face and muttered, "Oh great, this is going to be a pain." The plane flew into city, weaving through tall buildings. The plane, which was like a flying car, landed gently on a platform. When the doors opened, Luca and Giselle got out. She walked ahead, staying away from him. Without looking at him, she ordered, "Follow me. I'll take you to your dorm." As they walked up a big staircase to the academy entrance, Luca looked at the huge statue above them. It was a figure holding a sword, looking powerful and important. He read the words at the bottom. "All hail the Emperor, the father of the nation, the guardian of humanity, Dino Carthia." He ignored the thought and looked at the large building in front of him. As he reached the academy, he thought, "So this is the CFIA academy I've seen on TV." As Luca walked along the path, Giselle, not bothered by the stairs, said coolly, "Students here wear violet clothes that aren't too bright." Just then, a boy with white hair pushed a trainee and said meanly, "Get out of the way, commoner." Luca glanced at the trainee who fell, feeling annoyed. What a waste of a good implant, he thought. Giselle turned to Luca and asked impatiently, "What are you waiting for? Don't you even have the right clothes?" Luca didn't care. "Trainees don't need them." Giselle rolled her eyes. "How can you be so unprepared?" She muttered, "Why didn't my father tell me? He always does this to me." Luca watched her, amused, thinking, "She's getting upset about clothes? I didn't expect that." He shrugged and said, "Yeah, sorry." More students started to notice them as Giselle was about to scold him. A familiar voice called out, "Luca!" Luca turned to see a boy with red eyes and brown hair smiling at him. "Flex," Luca said, his face softening a little. Flex walked over, waving. "Good to see you. I heard 2 wasn't coming, so I thought you wouldn't come either." Luca smirked. "Of course I came." Flex then turned to Giselle. "Giselle Custoria, we've met, right? I'm Flex Ian, an Imperial Guard trainee like Luca. Can I borrow him for a minute?" Giselle closed her eyes, looking bored, and waved them away. "Okay, let me know when you're done, Luca," she said, walking away. Luca sighed quietly. Finally, some fresh air, he thought. Flex leaned in and whispered, "The Lady of Custoria is with you. The rumors that the Chief Centurion likes you must be true." Luca, not impressed, whispered back, "I can't believe someone as annoying as her is the Chief's daughter. She's been rude to me from the start. I was tempted to smell her nose in." Flex chuckled. "Haha, the Chief just wants you to learn about noble society for your future. Or maybe," he smirked, "he wants you to marry her. Who knows?" Luca rolled his eyes. "That's crazy." Flex, still smiling, pointed to Giselle. "No, really, you'll be spending time with nobles in the future." Luca thought for a moment. "Marry her? That's unlikely. I'm not very nice, and she's so difficult. The marriage would probably fall apart. Besides, the Chief Centurion and I made a deal. I'll watch Kinuin, and he'll let me join the Custoria family. I don't need to get married. I'll be his son anyway, he sighed to himself, but I can't give up. Flex leaned in even closer, whispering mischievously, "Oh, and Luca, have you modified, down there, you know what I mean?" Luca's eyes widened in shock. "No, not yet." "Why?" Flex smirked and secretly gave Luca a small box labeled 001. "Keep this with you. It's a gift from your friend." Luca looked confused. Before he could ask, Flex walked away with a red-haired girl. As he waved, he called out, "Trainees visiting the academy are always popular with girls. See you later, Luca." Luca watched him go, shaking his head. "Flex told me other things I need to know to live at the academy." Giselle, still standing nearby, tapped her foot impatiently and muttered, "Luca, how long are you going to stand around?" But Luca was lost in thought. "I think Flex and I will become good friends by the end of this. One thing Flex told me was about the dorm. It's where talented kids from poor areas like me and nobles who have lost their money stay because they can't afford their own places." As Luca thought about this, he realized that CFIA Academy was more complicated than any battlefield he had been on. Here, status was power, friendships were weapons, and surviving meant knowing how to play the game. Luca walked with Giselle, thinking hard. So even in the academy, there are social classes. It wouldn't be fun if it was easy to get to the top. Let's see what this place is like. They entered the academy building, the hallways decorated with designs and shiny floors. "This is your room. If you need anything, let me know," said the robot in a monotone voice. "Okay, this place is amazing," he muttered. He wondered, do commoners and poor nobles really stay here? No wonder this is the best academy. It's where the talented go when they aren't suited for military service. He sat down on the soft couch, closed his eyes, and let his mind wander. Standing outside the dorm, Giselle pointed to the building. "This is your dorm. After classes, the dorm leader will take you to your room." She took out a device and showed it to Luca. "This is my number. Call me if anything happens." Luca raised an eyebrow as he saved the number. "Don't you hate me?" Giselle remained calm. "I'm going to do what my father asked me to do." Luca looked at her face. So she's willing to take responsibility for her job. She's not just spoiled. He put his device in his pocket. "I probably won't need it." Giselle turned slightly, looking serious. "I feel the same way." "And some advice for your own good, Luca." Luca tilted his head. "What?" Her voice became serious. "Don't get too close to the dorm leader." Luca frowned. "Why?" Giselle crossed her arms. "She's the craziest person in the whole academy." Then there appeared a girl with curly, golden brown hair who entered the hall, humming a tune as she twirled in place. And with that, this chapter ends. Thank you for watching this video until the end. Support this channel by liking this video and subscribing the channel. And if you want me to recap another manhwa or manga, write its name on comment section. And if you want to know what happened in previous chapter, you can watch them in this YouTube channel.